So, the internet is a very loud and busy place, and if you're a quiet, introverted person, you might think there's no space for you on the internet, especially, if you look around at certain YouTube channels or different social media. People are very showy, or they kind of follow a certain pattern and a certain personality type mostly, and that can be very off-putting, I think, for us kind of more introverted people and people who really want to connect and kind of want to open up and say things that are maybe not like the most popular or commercial things to talk about. Like, we want to talk more from our hearts, or open up in ways that we're not able to in real life because we're not able to in real life. I was thinking about this because I was thinking about when the internet first came around, when it was first becoming popular back in the day. I was really excited by all the possibility of it, and I think, if you're like an older millennial, you'll relate to this. We literally had internet class at school. Like, it was very exciting, and it was so exciting to have this idea that you could put something out there and it could be seen by people that you don't know. But like, nobody had this kind of showy mentality towards it. I think it was very much like a creative mentality, like a knowledge sharing mentality. That's kind of how I suppose Wikipedia came about. That was really exciting, like putting all this knowledge there for free. Like, people just wanted to share their knowledge, and for me, I remember, like, when I first learned that you could make an internet page, a web page. Like, it was just so exciting, and you just wanted to create, and there was no sense of numbers, no sense of popularity, no sense of anything. Like, I actually don't even remember like how I made the first website that I made, but I made this cute little website. It was called Cute Therapy. And it's quite funny to think back now, because it was like just pictures of like cats and dogs. I mean, it was kind of like what lots of like Instagram, I suppose, is filled with, or Twitter, or all these types of things are now like kind of filled with. But I had this idea to make this website. This was before social media. And I just remember like loving putting that together, just the creativity of it all and like the innocence of it all. I don't remember at all checking statistics. I don't remember knowing if anybody had visited it, and I don't remember thinking about that. I really just remember about the creation of it and how much fun it was, and how I thought to myself, oh, this would be like such a calm, nice thing for people to come upon, and like maybe this could make somebody's day. Just very innocent thoughts around like the creation of that, and like not, just with absolutely no pressure. And that was kind of how we made web pages back in the day. I think, like, you just wanted to like put a little piece of yourself out there, and not, there was no competition, there was no stats, there was no nothing, there was no money making. And I think, that's really what's changed about the internet. I think it used to be like this place, it's especially for like, the geeky, nerdy, introverted types, the creative types who, felt they had something to say, or, something to give. And they wanted to create and put something out there, and put their knowledge out there, not with an expectation of getting anything back in return. And I think the beginning of the internet was actually a very beautiful place, as much as I remember it. It was all very exciting, and you got to see things that you would never have seen before. It was just a very exciting time. So I made that website called Cute Therapy, and then I really got into Spanish music a few years later, and I decided to make a website all about translating Spanish music. And again, this was just done for like the complete joy of it. So like, I translated the music, I put it on there, I picked the I picked the photographs and the pictures that would go on there, and I think I made a little forum. I really enjoyed like all the sort of problem solving that went along with that. Again, I don't even remember what the name of like the website builder was that I would have even used at that time. But I was so proud of that because I worked so hard on it. I created this kind of library of Spanish songs, and people were coming to the forum and kind of talking about the singer and talking about the translations, and I was really like proud of that. And it was just such an expression of myself and my interest at that time. And I think that was like something really quite special for me, and it was something I was really proud of, and I kind of considered myself like a web designer. Not that I really was, but like building websites was like something you could put on your CV because it was like something creative, and it was not something that a lot of people did because it was all quite new, and people were still like figuring out what to do. And again, like at that time, it was just a particular type of person who wanted to be putting things out there in a really kind of innocent, I don't want to say altruistic. I mean, it's not. It's just a form of expression. I was saying there was no incentive really apart from that form of expression, and that's, I think, what made it a very genuine place with genuine people. And being on the internet was kind of just like a geeky thing to be. Like the cool kids were kind of doing things, and they were popular in real life, so they had no desire to be spending time like on their own on a computer. Like that was not the cool thing to be doing. Then things changed, and I guess it would have been social media. Like the first things I remember were like MySpace. I think MySpace is like the first social media I remember where like the kind of the cool people were getting on it, and it was becoming about having followers, and it was becoming about numbers and about popularity. So what happened was there was like this shift where the internet was like a place for like the quiet creative people who just wanted to create and put something out there. And then there was a shift to it becoming a place like where the people who were popular in real life could extend their popularity. And you got like, I kind of use the term like the cool kids, but I'm talking about adults and people as well. Just like that sense of, this is a place where we can now show off and actually, amplify the popularity that we have in real life, or, amplify this sense of self. So it became like not so much about, what you were creating and what you were putting out there, as it became about showing your life. And of course, Facebook then was like really, I think was like the nail in the coffin for like it just being this creative place. Facebook made it to be about showing off your life and having friends, and counting the number of friends you had. Facebook became, I think, the start of, numbers and popularity and just noise. And this shift from the people who were, comfortable in real life and were the kind of social butterflies in real life, bringing their popularity online, and that kind of just taken over. And obviously since then this is now spread, and the internet, with Instagram, with TikTok, with different things, it has become like this very showy place, this very loud place, this place really based on numbers and popularity. And something I see from YouTube is that people actually just like copy each other, and somebody sees something that works and then they just copy it, and people make like YouTube channels just to tell people how to make YouTube channels. Like, people are finding the ways. The actual end game is just about getting those numbers. And the problem is, when money came into play, I think like money really ruined the internet. That's what I actually believe. So it's not so much like the social media. Like, yes, it is social media, but it's just become kind of like times 100, because once you bring money into something, you are going to encourage the worst type of people. And I think that's what's happened to the internet. Like, once it became apparent, or a place where you could make money, it's like, you've not just got the cool kids now, you've got like the bad kids who like are only interested in money. And they've kind of packaged, hatred and noisiness and, shouting and, be the loudest, like be the most extreme, like be the person who's saying the worst things, because you're going to get the most interest in what you're saying, and you are then going to get the popularity and get the money. I'm kind of digressing because I didn't want to talk about this particularly, but I just want to talk about how it can feel like the internet got taken over by certain groups of people and kind of left other people behind. And I think that's how I feel, and maybe how other introverted, probably millennials, will feel, in the sense that there was something before and now there's something after. Like, but there might be like, quieter people in, the younger generation who feel this as well, like that there's not really a place for them, or that, they don't want to kind of even wade into a place where you've got to think about numbers and think about popularity. And I think, if you struggle in real life with, feeling kind of out of place and feeling like you don't belong, and like you're not really able to speak to people, you don't really relate to people, the internet is kind of a great place, or it used to be a great place, where, you could find people that had your interests and you could connect with them. I think the problem is now, because of, this sense of building popularity and building numbers, and it kind of can be a little bit off-putting, I think, to, people who feel very genuine. And I suppose what I want to talk about is, my experience with this is like, I think after I made that website, I think, I experimented with trying to have Facebook, but it was just like not for me. And I think after that, just for a long time, I felt the internet was just not for me anymore, because it was, it was so loud and, so, you had to be so curated. It's almost like there wasn't a point of just posting a photograph of something, because other people were so much better at making photographs look pretty and like having a very aesthetically pleasing kind of lifestyle. And you realise the effort that goes into that. I don't think it's effortless, and that isn't something I wanted to spend my time doing, is like to be aesthetically pleasing, really. So yeah, I just kind of fell away from even, thinking about the internet really in that way, and that's fine. Like, I'm just creative in my own way, and my main creative output was always writing anyway. And I tended to write fiction, and the non-fiction things that I was writing, or just writing about myself and my thoughts, they kind of tended to just stay quiet anyway, because I don't think I ever even thought about connection through the internet in terms of like what was really deep down in me, or like deep down bothering me. I I wouldn't have thought like anybody would be able to relate to a lot of the things I was going through, and it is a lot of things I've spoken about now, like maladaptive daydreaming and lots of, you know, kind of challenging things like that, and just feeling like I've not related to a lot of people in real life. But yeah, I suppose I just want to say, you know, there are quiet places on the internet, and if you don't think about numbers and you actually, these things don't bother you, or you're able to, you know, push through and not focus on them. You know, I had kind of a breakthrough when I was making YouTube videos. You know, I started doing this, you know, as a way like out of depression, and I was just feeling really lonely, and I just felt, you know, it was something that might be positive for me, because I was not really speaking to people. I was just like not, I don't know, I had deep down had this desire that if I spoke about certain things that people would relate, and that has happened, and that's been really wonderful. But yeah, when I started YouTube, I was obviously very, you know, everybody talks about numbers and your views and your subscribers and all that, so I was very aware of that when I started, and I thought, oh no, if people don't watch this, then I'm going to have to stop. Oh, I hope. And I was enjoying making the videos, and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, like if I don't get views, then, you know, I'll need to just quit. And then, you know, a few months later, when views were very low, I had a breakthrough. Like, it really just doesn't matter. This is still, you know, I called it like Sam's creative space for a reason. Like, this is my little area, it's my little corner, and it doesn't matter like how low the views are. Like, if 1 or 2 people watches, like that's more than I'm getting to speak to in real life anyway. So, you know, if you do something and it touches like one person, or, you know, it says something to one person, like maybe that sounds like a cliche, but it's actually a really powerful thing, because I'm not affecting anybody in my real life, because I don't get to talk about anything that's really that personal or that deep, because everybody else is just kind of getting on with their life, and they're like very happy and comfortable and have, you know, quote unquote normal lives, and, you know, they don't need that. They don't need to like reach beyond that, and that's where I've felt I've needed to. And yeah, I really just had this breakthrough, like, oh wait, like it doesn't even matter. I enjoy making these videos, so I'll just keep making them. And when people, obviously, you know, you do get excited if you see high numbers like that. I think that's just natural, but it's not the be all and end all. And this video is really about, take back a little piece of the internet for yourself if you want to. Like, you don't need to be following along with what everyone else is doing. You don't need to be like listening to those YouTube gurus telling you things. You don't need to be, you know, doing Instagram the way other people do Instagram. You don't need to be doing, you know, other parts of the internet the way other people are doing it. Like, if you can let go of numbers and popularity, then you can just create this like quiet little space that's just yours. And, you know, people might stumble upon into it, they may not, but like the best thing for me has been like just to, you know, make myself visible, and especially coming out of a sense of depression, of maladaptive daydreams, like you're very disconnected to yourself, and I've just really wanted to, you know, make myself visible, mostly to me, and to have that creative part of myself somewhere. So yeah, I've done this through YouTube, and then I wanted to start writing online, so I recently started a substack, which no one is viewed. I'll put the link if you want to check it out, but it's basically, I just thought I'm just going to write from the heart about different things that are going on for me, you know, different ideas about my creativity and about my life and about different things, just like, again, an extension of myself, actually just to recapture my feelings when I was on the internet in the first place. And I'm using this has been another interesting experience. I'm using Substack, and the reason I really like this is that it's very simple to use. So if you are somebody who's not sure about how to get started writing on the internet, and you're thinking, oh, do I need to like get a blog or a website? Like, you just go on this and you basically can just hit create, write something, and then you don't need to make design decisions. And I think that's something that like would be bothering me, because it's like, oh, I need to make this as pretty as everybody else makes theirs. It actually like makes it pretty for you, like really quite simple. So I've just found that really simple to use and really quite enjoyable. And what I would say is, if you are looking for a place just to kind of write thoughts and get things out there, I think it's like a really good website for that. But the reason as well I was thinking about this is because on that website, everybody is trying to get noticed the way they are in different places. So, every time I see, on like the wee dashboard or the notes, I can't remember what it's called, but it's just like, follow me, like come see me, like put your link here if you're just starting to write, and again, like people are needing that validation and those numbers, and understandable, like people do want to be read. And I just wanted to recommend this as like a wee, quiet place if you're looking for somewhere, if you're wanting to kind of get back into using the internet and having your voice again. I think maybe a lot of us, have lost our voice in the kind of stampede of the internet and the way it's going, and the way it seems like this really loud and noisy place. And if you just want to express yourself and really just to like build your voice back up again, if you're kind of like me, you'll have kind of maybe lost confidence in that, and lost a sense that the internet is really a place for you. And I think there's so much of it, and I think there's really something to expressing yourself, like even if it's not seen by anybody, because it can really mess with your mind and mess with your soul if you're just going to work every day and like you're always embodying somebody who's not quite yourself, or not the person that you want to be or you imagine yourself. And I think that's the internet's quite good for that, is just to put out there what is the deeper part of yourself, and to really like just not be afraid of your voice and afraid of like the deeper thoughts that you have that you don't get to explore or discuss with people in the real world. I think I suppose there is something like a little bit dystopian about this situation that we're in the sense, I think it's hard to connect to people in real life, especially, if you feel like a kind of deep thinker, creative person, and, everybody's just like small talking about their busy lives. You can feel really left out and like there's no one to talk to. And then you turn to the internet and you put yourself out there, you put your voice out there, and like maybe nobody's responding, but I think there's still value in that, just for yourself, just to have a little piece of you that's tangible. I would say like that's what it feels like you just want a piece that's tangible. And yeah, so I've just been thinking about that, and just thinking about how we should reclaim the internet. The internet was ours to begin with. I'm talking about like the older millennials here. We were the generation raised, particularly for me, I mean, my age group, I was kind of like around 13 or 14, like I guess like when Google started coming around and when Wikipedia started coming around, and at that time, you really like grew up with all the advancements in the internet, and like the way, you've seen the way it's transformed over time. So I think, if you feel like your voice has been lost in all the noise, then I hope you're able to reclaim your voice and put yourself out there if that's something that you want to do. And I think it is a very positive thing to do if you are, feeling lost within yourself. And, a lot of the people that I've talked to are people struggling with maladaptive daydreaming, and that is a struggle where you feel like really, disconnected from yourself because you're always, in the head of somebody else. So I think it's a positive thing if you can try and get back into your body and back into your own mind and explore your own mind, and explore your own creativity, and just write and just put things out there. And I guess it's like, don't be shy. And I feel like this real urgency just now. Like, I feel like I've felt invisible for so long and felt like I've lost myself for so long, that I feel like this urgency just to, now to feel visible, even just to myself. So yeah, I mean, this was a very rambly video, but I hope it makes sense, and I hope, it connects with some people, like probably people who are a bit older, or, people maybe who are just a bit shyer. If you're looking for, how to express yourself, I hope this video has helped. And yeah, if you want to check out the Substack that I'm writing, like I say, no one's really read it. And if you want to check it out, you can. And thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.